What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Corporate Counterculture, where we take deep dives on cultural norms within corporate America, your day to day 9 to 5 jobs. And we look at them from an aspect of, hey, are these good? Are these bad? Should they stay or should they go? And today we are talking about success metrics. More than just job titles and salaries, we want to really look at what does it actually mean to be successful at work. And so if you're one of those people who are struggling with, hey, maybe I am killing it at work, but I'm not getting paid. Or maybe I'm getting paid, but the work isn't meaningful. We're going to talk about all of that today. And so let me introduce myself. I am Bryan Taylor, and
And
here
I'm
we
Bryan
have
Martins.
Bryan Martins. There we go. So let's get into it, man. Bryan, tell me what you think about the idea of success at
I
work.
Yeah, so that's a good topic. I think that in general, success is something that means different things to different people.
Hmm.
In the large corporate scheme of things, usually it's tied to money and title. But I think that again, challenging the status quo and seeing kind of how things have progressed, especially with younger generations coming up behind us, such as Gen Zs and so forth. Success has taken on a different meaning, right? So in general, I think that there's been a shift where money and title don't matter as much as it once did. I think that now we're approaching a point where freedom means a lot more than monetary things.
I like that. I agree with you. I can remember I'm older than you, so we already know just generationally
Yeah.
success looked a little bit different when I started. But when I was a salesman at UPS, man, you had to wear a suit every day, full on suit. And so success one was name recognition for me because
Hmm.
of UPS. It was a household name. Maybe not today, the UPS people think of, but I'm talking about the teens of 2000 where everybody really, really liked UPS and we were top 50, Fortune 50 company and all these things. And then also just what you wore. So I had to wear a suit every single day. And the amount of respect people gave you from one, wearing a suit, and then two, also from working at UPS was like bar none. So for me, it was being that, embodying the whole what is it, madman, wearing a suit,
Yeah.
working with businesses, consulting them, selling to them, killing all the sales training and role plays, all these things that don't necessarily mean much today because after I left UPS, it was just completely different. You had people who were younger than me, making more than me, better at sales than me, wearing dirty New Balance with skinny jeans and a t-shirt, and they're doing consulting calls on Zoom instead of door to door and face to face. And then when we went face to face, they were dressing in what I didn't even know was a term back then until they told me, but smart casual. So my whole tradition and lifestyle of what success looked like from a work perspective has been turned on its head because it was so much about the external front facing version of you. And then everything else, the dirty details, money, salary, and all that was things you just didn't really talk about. But the most important thing that success started with was how you looked and the name of the company you worked for.
Yeah, that's a good point. Right, like chasing a position within a large organization. So, like you said, UPS was a big, it still is obviously, but was a big name.
Yeah.
Um, Versus maybe having monetary success somewhere else at a smaller organization doesn't have that same like naming recognition,
Hmm.
and maybe somebody would want to change that up and forego all of that for, okay, let me take a step down, let me get in like entry level or slightly above entry level at a larger organization and see how that might pan out, just for potentially increasing your network or improving your network, improving your connections, that type of thing. I feel like in recent years though, all that's gone out the window. Like if I were to think back to when I was first getting out of school, it was definitely I had in my mind it was 2015, it was mid 2010s, right? So I definitely had in my mind, okay, I want to wear like a suit and tie. Like I had done
Hmm.
pizza deliveries for high school and college, and then I also came from like a working family, so everybody had uniforms and things like that. And so I was like, okay, suit and tie, that type of thing is what I wanted. As I got hired at my first place, though, in my first position, I was the only one that was wearing a tie, and that was like my own brain telling me this is what I should do now to kind of get that respect, that recognition,
Yeah.
right in the door. Even though I'm the new guy, if I dress better than everybody else, then maybe it'll help me, right, in some way, in one form or another. And then you start developing, okay, well, you kind of stand out like a sore thumb if you're dressed so differently from everybody else. And also, too, depending on the field that you're in, you have to it has to be appropriate, right? So if I was going into manufacturing facilities, very, very dirty facilities, wearing steel toes and requiring PPE like hard hats and all that stuff, high vis vests, doesn't really make sense that I'd be wearing a tie also, right? Doesn't make sense that I'd be wearing, some dress shoes and some slacks or something like that. It'd make more sense if I'm wearing jeans or steel toes and so forth. Um, and then fast forward to like pandemic, right? And everybody's working from home. So now everybody's working in their literally in their pajamas, sweatpants, sweatshirts, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And then even a few more years in with all these advancements in social media and everything else, even just working for a corporation in general has been has basically been the goal to get away from that, right? Like
Hmm.
the entrepreneurship and being an influencer and all these other things are things that are all now intrinsic factors in a way to get away from the grind, I'd say. And I think that in general there's a happy medium there, right? Like sure that might work for some, but I'm the type of person that's not my that doesn't do anything for me. Like I don't really care to be a social media influencer in that way.
Hmm.
Um, because that also becomes a full-time job too, right? And there's certain people that might even talk about that in one way or another. What's your kind of take on how the trend has evolved over the past 10, 15 years?
Man, I'm excited that it's evolved, and I welcome the changes
Yep.
because the corporate ladder versus your personal milestones, oh man, it's night and day. I even think about when I was wearing the suit and tie at UPS. Everybody
Yep.
thought the nice car in the parking lot was mine. It was one of the drivers. It wasn't mine.
What?
It was the drivers had the nice car. The drivers had families. They had houses
Yeah.
outside the city. Meanwhile, I'm overpaying in rent to stay in the city and wear a suit just so I can fit the bill of what this
Okay.
salesman looks like. So I'm super excited that people have kind of deconstructed what all that looks like.
Yeah.
Because it takes two, right? It takes you as the employee and organization, but then it also takes the customers to be receptive to that.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited of where it's gone in this last 10, 15 years. Um, my hope though is that it starts to seep more into the internal structures and
Mm-hmm.
bottlenecks that we have to deal with. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, because when I think about personal milestones, it's almost, I mean, it is counter culture to what you're doing. Case in point, we're in sales, so it doesn't matter that you make plan, um, because even if you make plan, you're still ranked. So you can you can be at the bottom of the list of everybody who made plan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that it always adds some type of stretch goal or some um, incentive to overcompensate or focus more into work instead of the bigger picture of what you may want personally. So I'm glad that we've gotten this far. I know there's a lot of room left to go though, especially with everybody implementing technology that now they think they can lay people off. So I think even more so, people are going to have to really look at what their personal milestones are, instead of it turning to work and accepting what the corporate ladder is and just
Hmm.
deciding to climb that ladder, because now you're going to start realizing it's up against the wrong building, because they're laying off everybody from, the lowest of level SDRs all the way to VPs. It's not just, oh, well, you're an SDR and you're replaceable. It's like, nah, we're getting
Yeah.
rid of high salary and low salary too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where you brought up a good point, right? Like, what are you going to get out of that? So if you're just chasing a title, anybody's expendable and at the right size company, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe if you're like I came from a pretty small place and there might have been you know, two high level people or something like that, but everybody else was pretty much expendable. Um, and then there were like probably very few people that weren't. But then you go
Hmm.
into like a very large company and really it doesn't take much to shift some things around, get rid of a body and then have some other people backfill that way. So, is it enough to kind of the question that I'm hearing you ask yourself in a way, right? Is it enough to just climb the corporate ladder? Is it enough to just increase your title and increase your responsibility? Or do you take the time that you have at the place that you're at to kind of deepen some other meaningful connections in such a way that could be potential down the line, right? So like I've learned that your reputation, not just within the own organization that you're in, but like your reputation with your customers, potentially with some coworkers or even kind of other organizations that you might team up on certain projects with, that could pay huge dividends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that could open doors for you down the way. So maybe you don't get the salary bump or you don't get the title bump that you might be looking for in the moment, but what do you get out of that, out of each exchange? What do you get out of each kind of interaction in terms of skills or network expansion, that type of thing?
Yep. Yeah, man. That's where I think you have to kind of look deeper and ask yourself, like you said, these other opportunities can be career changing
Yeah.
and then also life changing. I know I've worked on a few projects that either got me promoted, or when somebody left the company, they took me with them. So yeah, it's relationship building is now a huge a component of what I try to do, which is different now since we're not working in formal office settings.
Yeah.
But
Harder.
it's important, man. It's important. What
Yeah.
um, what do you think is the allure? Because you still have to this day people on LinkedIn chasing that carrot. What do you think the allure is for to in 2025, 2026 and beyond, for someone to just decide to go all in on corporate America?
So to answer your question about what is the allure of basically chasing a title, maybe, or maybe, really climbing up that corporate ladder, I think that when it comes to certain platforms, certain like search databases, things like that, right? Think of LinkedIn primarily, think of like Indeed, or even just building your resume in general. Those are
Hmm.
certain things that are easily recognizable. So I understand, if you're chasing a director role, then it helps to have had that experience in a director role before. Or sometimes what I've found in my own personal experience is I've had like the manager title, like a sales manager title, and they'll be like, okay, well then you should have had some people under you, right? But in a direct sales role or in certain types of sales environments, just because you're like a regional sales manager or um, some sort of sales manager doesn't necessarily mean that you are overseeing other people, right?
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of that too, if you prematurely get that title, depending on the size of your organization or your history or whatever, you might not have experience that directly applies to what really should come with that role, and then it might actually hurt you in one way or another. So it's a give or take. You know what I mean? Like in my job
Hmm.
searches in the past few years, it's really been, well, you have a manager title. How do you not oversee anybody? And that
Yeah.
kind of hurt me. Um,
Hmm.
on the flip side of things, I've kind of dabbled in other roles and also thought, well, I don't have anything in my resume here that really speaks to my experience and the way that I could apply that experience in those other roles. So it's hard for them to even pass the first step of a resume review or something like that. So there's a give and take. And I think that more than anything, just the easily recognizable aspect of, okay, this person started off as this and then moved to that and then moved to this and then moved to that. You know, they were able to climb and that's just easily recognizable. I just don't think that that necessarily, I don't know. I feel like there's so much more to that and it kind of gets diluted in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I think when everyone looks at other people on LinkedIn and it's pretty much just a publicity contest, not even a popularity contest. It's just, you know, if you get a new job, it'll let you post it to everybody and let them know you got a new job or promotion and all these things. I think people are striving for or searching for constant progress and upward mobility and proof of concept or proof of their efforts when they're on LinkedIn. So they're always communicating in this way that's it's typically inauthentic, man. It's just
It's
but
like the highlight reel.
yeah, and everybody
Yeah.
is doing it, so it's a weird dynamic. And it's a I don't know, man. It's become a crazy place on LinkedIn. I think even now some of those thought leaders. I saw one guy. He said, "Oh, um, I bought a coffee at some coffee shop, and I'm simplifying it, and the service was great, and here's what I learned." And next thing you know, he's got like 3 bullet points of
Yeah. Yeah. I
key
know.
takeaways for salespeople.
Yeah.
It's just a mind dump, and it
Yeah.
really makes you want to remove yourself from those type of environments, and it also kind of makes you look at work in a kind of icky way. Uh, but it's an odd thing because these social media platforms were created for these newer generations.
Hmm.
But it seems like a lot of these newer generations are chasing other things now when it comes to uh, peace and comfort in the space of corporate America. You know, some people are just, they want freedom. They don't mind working a 9 to 5, but they want freedom or they're focusing on their family, all these other things. What's your take on that?
I think it comes from general ebbs and flows in society in a way that, you know, different things become more valuable based on what is generally more celebrated. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think that, you know, if you were to look at like the traditional lifestyle of
Yeah.
like the 50s to the 80s to the 90s, maybe it was,
Mm-hmm.
you know, guys went out, worked, whether that was enlist in the army or get a college degree or whatever, and you got married, you had kids, wife stayed at home with the kids, and that was celebrated.
That was it.
That was it. But that was celebrated.
Yeah.
And then it was okay, well, now women need to be a little bit more independent. And independent women were celebrated. And so now more and more women become independent. But now there's more things in the compete. There's more competition in the marketplace because it's not just guys. It's girls also. And then in that sense too, things become a little bit more difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you come like fast forward, here we are in the 2000s, the 2010s, 2020s. I think what's really celebrated now is like that not being tied down to like a 9 to 5, right? Like traveling all the time. And again, the whole highlight reel aspect of social media is really what I think is celebrated the most right now. And
Yeah.
so unless you're doing that, you're not able to keep up. But I
True.
think that really what ends up happening, what I think in my opinion would be the root of the issue is not being able to be content with what your situation is, what like you truly want. So I'm not the type of person that I enjoy traveling. I don't care to travel multiple times a year. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy my life at home. I love my wife and I enjoy the life that we've built together.
Yeah.
There's people that might look at my life and say that it's boring, but to me, that's more important than being able to vacation 4 times a year or something like that. Uh, in general, I think that there's a way to really take a deep dive and kind of be introspective in a way and look at why am I chasing one thing versus another? What really makes me happy and what really is important to me? And it really, I think what it comes down to is just trends and what's celebrated in the moment. Currently, that happens to be traveling and not having a corporate job where you're tied to a desk 9 to 5. You know what I mean? What's your take on that?
Yeah, man, I think it was a necessary turn. We got really into this emphatic hustle culture of 9 to 5 work, which is crazy because you're already scheduled into a work block. Um, but it got really messy because I've worked at so many different jobs, and there's just too many dynamics that aren't uniform throughout all organizations
Mm-hmm.
that work sucks at all of them essentially in some form or fashion. I've been at
Yeah.
one job where you could have worked your complete shift and be done, but oh, we don't leave till the boss leaves. Why?
Mm.
Why he doesn't like going home for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
right? For for
Right.
for a large amount of reasons, and so he's here till 6:30. Granted, he got in at 10, which
Yep.
so but if I'm here at 7:30, 8 o'clock, why am I waiting till he goes home at 5:45 so that I can leave? So
Yeah.
that there's one thing that way. Then there's another thing where you say, oh well, this team can work remotely. How come this team can't work remotely? And
Yes.
so many different layers of corporate America where you kind of just you realize how out of control of your destiny you are
Yeah.
in those areas that you just decide to overcompensate and go the other way.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. I didn't think about the different layers and the different structures in that way, right? So I look, we all know that sales is kind of like you have general free reign in one way or another, right? At the end of
Yep.
the day, all that matters is that you're closing a sale, you're working towards your quota, and you got the commission checks coming in. Sure,
Yeah.
that's
Yep.
fine. The problem is that depending on the organization, people look at that and feel a certain type of way.
Hmm.
I came from a place where sales team was really really small, far outnumbered by the rest of the organization. We didn't even make up 10% of the organization, and everybody felt a certain way if we like took an extra day off throughout the week, or if we left early a certain day, or if we started late the next day, or a long travel day ended up not coming into the office the next day or something like that. And at the same on the other side of the coin though comes the okay, what does it take for me to bring in money into the company, right? So on the flip side of things, nobody sees the waking up at 3 a.m., being at the airport at 4:30 in the morning, flying to customer sites, having a full day of appointments, and then going back to the hotel, doing quotes, doing this, doing emails, and all that stuff, knocking out
Hmm.
at midnight and having basically an 18 or 20-hour day. Nobody sees that part of it. They just
Yeah.
see the day that you didn't show up at the office and you weren't technically in front of a customer. Um, I think that to your point, a generation as a whole has potentially just seen all of that and just been like, no, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
And I think that with experience, right, like kind of you have to kind of get into it a little bit. Like you've been in this longer than me, but I've been in it for over 10 years. With experience, you start seeing, okay, this is where the line is. This is how I can make the work life balance really come into play. This is how I can take advantage of the freedoms that I do have to compensate for some of the tough times that I might have throughout the year.
Hmm.
And I think at the end of the day, the real important thing is really to just be very, very particular about what is important to you and what is it that you want, right? So wife, kids, whatever the case might be, or if you're single, I really want to see as much as I can and really be out and about as much as I can. Okay. And that works for you. It just doesn't work for everybody else. But it also too though, right? Like you can't knock the other guy. Like you can't demonize the 9 to 5 because you didn't like the 9 to 5. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. It's tricky because I think some of these younger kids they want the 9 to 5. They just don't want all that it requires.
They
And
want the stability of a 9 to 5. They just don't want the commitment of a 9 to 5. Is that what you're saying?
well, so here's the and that's but see that's where the line is blurry, right? Because
Yeah.
for me and you, didn't they say, well, hey, I don't mind doing the type of job you have, but why do I have to fly all the way over here? And 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 there's so many things that when you from a sales perspective that are just culturally normal
Mm-hmm.
that may not necessarily be important, right? But we
Yeah.
just do them because they're culturally normal. I mean, we've been to trade shows together where
Sure.
you probably didn't have to be there, or I probably didn't have to be there, or as many people as there were did not have to be there all at the same time. We probably could have
Mm-hmm.
did 2 day shifts or one
Yeah.
day shift, but hey, all of y'all come and stand together all week. And
Yeah.
so I think that's the thing that they have issues with, where the things that don't make sense that we are just so used to doing,
Mm-hmm.
they can't wrap their head around that stuff because that is where the freedom becomes a big time suck. Because like now, like you said, that's a 20-hour day, and they say, well, shoot, I might as well if I just take a $20,000 deduction, I'll work a flexible job, and then I'll make up the $20,000 here and there throughout the year without having to be tired and come back home sick because I was on these different planes or miss family engagements, or even if they don't have a family, miss just personal engagements that they want to do. That's where I think the line is blurry, but it's clear for them. It's very clear. I don't want to do all that extra stuff. All that extra stuff you're doing, that's where I draw the line.
Right. Right. Yeah, I see it that way. You know what I mean? I can agree with you in that sense of like, what am I really signing up for? What am I going to get for it? Let's just make sure that like we're coloring inside the lines, and there's no like, to your point, there's no blurriness, right? There's no kind of like bleed over. Um, I don't know, man. I think that once you're in it for a while, though, like for us, right? Like you're in it for a while,
Mm-hmm.
you know what to expect, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
There is a learning curve there. I remember when I first started and I started traveling, I it was one day on a plane, and then 2 to 3 days of appointments, and then another day on a plane. So I'd be gone Monday through Friday, and
Mm-hmm.
that very quickly was like, okay, it's not worth it. And then I was
Yeah.
just like, okay, so instead of spending a night, you know, instead of spending Thursday night out and flying home Friday morning, why don't I just fly home Thursday night? And then it turned into, instead of flying out Monday afternoon, why don't I just fly out Tuesday morning? And I started getting really good at compressing and kind of minimizing my time on the road, because what mattered to me was not being on the road. You know what I mean? What
Yeah.
mattered to me was just making the most of my time while I was there. The
Yeah.
same
For
thing
sure.
goes, I think the same thing goes the other way now, though. Like, at first I didn't start working from home, right? But once that opportunity presented itself and I saw the flexibility that was in that, what's the flip side of working from home? Like, you never have to, you're never really off the clock, right? Like,
Yeah.
your computer's always there, your office is always there. Your phone's gonna ring. Like, you don't have a
10
desk phone
p.m.
anymore, so like now it's just your cell phone. Um, there is no show up to work and then leave work, and that's the
Yeah.
flip side of it. But at the same time, okay, well, if I need to run an errand in the middle of the day, it doesn't take so much of it. I don't have somebody that sees my coming and going from the building, right? Um, I don't know, man. It's really like, you really got to go through. I think that like a lot of things too, though, is a lot of people, especially again, where I feel like an old head just trying to say all the younger kids or whatever. But like, I feel like there's a lot of non-starters now. Like, there's a lot of not even wanting to try it
Yeah.
before even really
Absolutely.
kind of giving it a good shot. You know what I
Man.
mean? So I feel like kids now are just like, oh well, it says this in the job description, or I've heard this about this company, or my friend worked here and they said this, and they never really tried it out for themselves. So you got to also take everything with a grain of salt too. And
Yeah.
it's not all, the grass isn't always greener, but also, the flip side of not being in a 9 to 5 isn't always greener either. So it's
No, man. And that's where
it's difficult.
Yeah, I tend to just believe the grass is greener where you water it because
Yeah.
you can make either work, but I definitely saw this coming. I was on this project that they called the like human capital something back in the day at one of the companies I worked for, and what we found out is that the reason people weren't trying to get promoted, reason we couldn't hire people, like you said, was that exact word, a lot of non-starters. And so once we found out there were non-starters from people that we were interviewing to bring into the organization, the next thing was to go to people in the organization that had turned down promotions and things like that. A couple of things came up. So one guy, I was super cool with him. I hung out with him outside of work. So I
Hmm.
thought he'd be easy interview, first interview. And he told me about this time before I got there that he made President's Club. And President's Club means you get a trip, a
Yeah.
free trip.
Yeah.
And so so in his mind, oh, okay, it's a free trip. I'll take it. But it was a free trip with people at work. And he was like, well, if I have to go with everybody from work, then it's not really a free trip. It's a work trip.
Yeah.
And
True.
they had this big back and forth. It's like, yo, we're going to pay for you and your wife to go to, so I forgot where it was, but
Sure.
somewhere tropical. And he was like, yes, but with the entire workforce. So he was like, yo, I don't want to be just prancing around in bikinis and swim trunks with everybody when I
Yeah.
don't know everybody like that. I'm comfortable with these few people, so I mean they're not going, so why can't I just either go separately? It'd be
Yeah.
cheaper,
Yeah.
or how come I can't go just take the week off? And so he just opted to take the week off.
Wow.
And people were pissed about this because he's like, one, you're telling me to go at a time when you want the trip to be. That's not even
True. That's true.
I hadn't thought about all this stuff, dude.
Yeah.
He was
No,
like,
that's
now I
true.
have to hold this to a week that you want, which doesn't really work for us anyway.
Yeah.
But my hands are kind of tied because it's work. So now I'm going to work, but we're being rewarded. So and then of course, once people got back, all they did was talk about who got messed up, who was trashed, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that became a real thing. So he didn't want to be a part of that.
Right.
So that was a real issue. And since then he was just like, no, I don't want to get promoted, things like that. Talked to another person, and the reason why they liked working remotely was because they didn't have to deal with the office politics.
Hmm.
And we've talked about this, but they didn't drink. And so to come to work would be one thing, but once you build the relationships and then you don't go out after work,
Hmm.
then you're back alienated. So
Yeah.
so so he was like, just leave me at home.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then another guy, it's the last one I'll tell you about, but he went from being a super high performer to just flying under the radar and just making his numbers.
Hmm.
And we asked him about that, and he said because every time I do something well, it becomes you become a show pony. Like,
Hmm.
hey, hop on this call with corporate.
Hmm.
Hey, show them your best practices and this and that. And he said I would have so much anxiety for 2 weeks because it was me presenting what I did well, but then I'm on 4 calls with different levels of bosses and people because they didn't want me to mess up in front of their boss.
Right.
And so I just thought about all the layers that we add onto people in the corporate structure, even when they do well. Like the reward isn't even really a reward.
Yeah. It's almost a punishment at that point.
It's a
Like if
punishment
if you
to,
don't do well, you don't have all this extra homework, right? But
yeah,
if you do, it's like the yeah, man. It's like being a kid, being in school, and you're rewarded with a good grade for like extra homework. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's just not fun. It's really
yeah,
not fun. And really it more than anything, it's exactly that. Like a not putting the employee first and really having like a rigid structure ends up being so counterproductive
hmm,
that you end up destroying the culture and then not not incentivizing. You incentivize people to the opposite side. Like you incentivize them to not be a high performer.
yeah,
I've had again similar story. Somebody that I was very very close with at a different position did well for years, like decades, and COVID comes around, And something as simple as, hey, you have COVID. Um, the government doesn't require us to pay for COVID leave or whatever it was. You have to come in or take a personal day because we don't trust that you're actually working from home. And that was enough to be like, how does 3 days of me being out with COVID and working from home count, like undo, you know, years and millions of dollars that I've already brought into this company?
Yeah.
How does that actually work? And I can see the turnoff, man. Like I can see if somebody's completely new to this world and they hear these horror stories and things like that, I can see the fact that, you know what, maybe I can try social media, maybe I can start a business, and maybe I can freelance or something like that, and maybe I can, completely do away with corporate stuff altogether.
Yeah.
And I can see it. I can see the attraction of it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think the most important thing though is really a person being able to build their own KPIs, their own key performance indicators, instead of just falling into what either the corporate world or even the social media and general society might kind of force on them. Is what's most important to you. Like to me, I don't need 4 trips a year. To me, I don't need uh I don't care, to like I have to have some sort of structure throughout the week that says I need to hit these few tests, and then I can kind of play 6 hours one day, 10 hours the next day, that type of thing. That's
Yep.
more important to me than somebody that might thrive on, you know, a rigid 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, a rigid, go into the office, turn off everything work related, walk away. Nobody calls me, nobody emails me when I'm gone. Different strokes for different folks, I think.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna go back to what you said, then I'm gonna go into my thoughts on KPIs too, because you said something. You said if someone hears these stories, and it made me think most of these kids have heard these stories from their parents. Their
100%.
their parents may not have been talking to them, but they were talking to their wife or their husband or their friends, and the kids for years are like, "Why would I go through
a
that?"
100%. Yeah.
And so that's part of it. But yeah, key performance indicators, man. For me, and it took me all the way to 40 to even really start to think about this. I'd say it's probably 37, 38. I was a director of business development somewhere else, and I was traveling a lot. I was spending a lot of money on my expense account, entertaining clients, winning business, but I
Hmm.
was always gone. And my wife was just like, "Yo, can't do this because these kids require way too much time. We live in Southern California. We're the only ones out here, no other family,
Yeah.
so it just was not sustainable." And so I was like, "Cool, I'll just get a job here." And even then, she was like, "But you have to be here because you
Yeah.
can have a job locally, but still be gone all the time."
Yeah.
And so now, man, I've through a lot of thinking, I've changed my key performance indicators to like key priority indicators now. Like, what are the priorities at the job? Because a lot of things can become side projects. If you have a good idea,
Yep.
you might get tasked with reaching out to this person, or tasked with looking up this stuff, or tasked with creating this thing. And so for me, the key priorities are the things that I stick to through the week. And then, like you said, your list of these are my main things I need to hit. And that's where I say success is success for me. So if we have to have a certain amount of cold calls a week, if I need to follow up with all of my prospects in a timely manner that week, plus follow up on any deals in the pipeline, plus update Salesforce. If those are the main things I need to do, that's
Hmm.
absolutely what has to be done. If something else is coming in, then even now I communicate, "Hey, boss, like, yo, these are the things I know have to be done this week. Where should I add this other thing? Or where should
Hmm.
I remove something so that I can do
True.
this thing we're thinking about?" So for me, it's that over communication of the priorities. And that's kind of where I live in. Okay, within this company, this is what success looks like for me, so that I can make sure that I'm doing what they tell me to do and what they want me to do, without taking on too much of the additional stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. I don't have kids yet, but I think a lot about what my life will look like with kids. And I knew that at my last company, like something had to give to really make room for the life that I wanted to live once kids were around. And really for me it was the being on the road for multiple nights at a time.
Yeah.
So that was a big one for me. And then also too, hey, is it realistic that we could live on one income with one or two kids for a certain amount of time? That's something that always kind of creeps into your head a little bit too. Do I need to get creative? Do I need to look for a new job? Do I need to, like, all these different things are variables that you have to account for when you are just leaving a leaving the corporate world, or like, really falling into chasing promotions or increasing or moving up the corporate ladder, things like that. Is I watched somebody come into my last company and was a freaking stress ball within like 6 months, dude. And I was just like, I don't want that, And I was
Yeah.
like, that's perfect, because that was a position that I was interested in. And now I see that it's not all it's made out to be. You know what I mean? And it was a perfect
Absolutely.
way for me to be like, what should I do now? You know what I mean? What do I really want to think about now? And so it's so independent, it's so specific, man. Like, it's so different for every single person. I think that's the biggest takeaway about, this discussion, is really what makes you tick, what's important to you, what do you want from your life, and also, how do you get that, right? Like, what are you willing to give up for that? What's the Is there something you need to potentially sacrifice to gain something over here? What are the pros and cons of any move that you try to make? I think that's all stuff that can be oversimplified, but if you don't think about it up front, it's gonna freaking come around and hit you pretty hard.
Dude, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a firm believer in that, man. How do you feel about like side skills and being crafty? You know, because when you work a 9 to 5, it's weird, but it's like a silent. I don't know. Maybe it's a black sheep or the elephant in the room, but everybody at a 9 to 5, you always hear about like three things. So one is always investing, right? Like, so you
Okay.
always find that one guy that asks you what you're investing in.
Yeah.
Um, Two, you always hear about looking at another company, so
Mm-hmm.
networking. And
Mm-hmm.
then three, you always hear about something with like, a side hustle or entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So I think that there's value to all three of those.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm the type of guy. I'll tell you where I come from. So, like, I don't particularly care about being a business owner.
Yeah.
I straight up tell my wife, like, my wife comes from a family where her dad's an entrepreneur, has been a business owner his entire life. And that's like the only way that his brain works, is owning a business, being the one in charge. And that's totally fine if you're that type of person. However, I look at it on the flip side, and to me, it's not worth the stress and then never being able to turn it off.
Yeah.
That being an employee with a little bit lateral freedom, you know, I think there's a lot more upside to being an employee that has a certain type of position that allows them a certain level of freedom. On the investing side of things, to be straight up, I've never made enough money to be like, oh yeah, man, this is gonna be a good investment down the line, that type of thing. I've focused on, my day to day, what I can, what I can do that's not wasteful. To
Yeah.
me, it was buy my first place as early as I could. Um, but then on the actual like side hustle thing, that's I think that there's a lot of value to that, but then also managers, superiors, that type of thing, they get a little weird about it, right?
Man, they
So
do. Yeah, yeah,
depending
yeah.
on what your relationship might be with a manager or even somebody higher up than them, um, they might get a little bit weird about, hey, how much time are you really committing to this other thing? Is it interfering with the time that you'd be available for work for our stuff? All of that has to be delicately balanced.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, for me, I think of those three, where I spend the most time and where I think the biggest overlap is with my day to day is definitely networking. I think that I put a lot of emphasis on just general integrity and being as good of a person as I can be in every interaction, whether that's with a customer, with a potential partner, with a coworker, right? Like I never want to burn a bridge. Even if I am going from one company to the next, you leave on good terms. Um, you leave a place better than you left it. Like I still have guys that I talk to from, I haven't worked with, there's one particular person that comes to mind. I haven't worked with them since 2018, 2019, and we're still buddies. And like, we never connected like professionally in terms of like working at the same company or anything like that. But I've used him as a means to try to get my, another friend, a job or something like that. And that all comes back from the good experience that we've had with each other over the few 4 or 5 years that we did work together. So I think that there's a lot more value in network and general reputation than there is in just like monetary things.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you spend of those three? Investing, networking, or like side hustles, kind of what's your focus when it's not, the family stuff?
I think the biggest thing for me is networking too. One, because I mean I like work, so it's not a I don't feel bad. I think we're blessed to be in sales positions where you get to meet people, travel, and things like that. So the job itself, when you just look at the basics of what the job is versus other jobs, it's a good gig, especially if you like to talk to people. If you're somewhat outgoing, you could be an introvert, but if you're somewhat outgoing enough to where you can talk to people and communicate business cases well,
Mm-hmm.
sales is a really good gig. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, networking is always important. I think every single job I got has been through networking, dude. It's
Really?
it hasn't as many times as I've interviewed, as many people have called me from LinkedIn, all those things. I've gotten those jobs too, but the jobs I
Sure.
actually accepted was
Yeah.
because of networking and people I knew that told me, "Oh, try this one out or do this one." Like, yo, talk to my person over here. I thought about
Mm-hmm.
you. I told him. So those are the only jobs I've accepted. Um, so networking is super big for me. I think I'm most curious about outside of networking, entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And the reason being, I think investing is super important, but you also have to there's a big education lift, even if it's simple. Um, and because I think a lot of people invest with the hopes to make substantial money that they can utilize now.
Right.
And and I'm completely like that personality too. So for me,
Quick results.
yeah. So for me, I think I would need to generate more income before being okay with putting other income to the side. I mean, we all invest a little here and there, but like you said, to feel like it's significant,
Mm-hmm.
um, to where I could say, "Oh, Nvidia," or "Oh, I'm not at the level of looking at Nvidia 4 years ago." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I think you got to have a certain amount of money where you can say, where you can sit back and think about big plays like that, even if you're not even putting a lot of money into it. So for me, entrepreneurship is interesting, but where I think it conflicts is because my intersection would be with, if I were to try entrepreneurship, it would be with something I already do. So I already talk
Mm-hmm.
to people
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
every day. So
Right.
it would have to be something talking to people every day. More
Right.
than likely, it would have to be something that I know about. So it would have to pull from my work experience. And I just don't know where that lands in a black and white area or a gray area, depending on what it is, right? So it would have to be, I think it would have to be presented to me in a way that it was one morally upstanding for me to do within reason of my job. Two, it couldn't conflict with my job. But yeah, I wouldn't want to say, okay, I'm taking off my sales and consulting hat, and now I need to pick up some completely different hat,
That's a good
and
point.
you know what I mean? Like say now I need to
Yeah.
think like a baker or
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
run this coffee shop or
Right.
this t-shirt printing business. You know what I mean?
Right.
I feel like if I just stayed in what I already do, I'd be able to do it from the phone, do it on a call. It would just be an easy lift. So if that comes in some form or flow down the line, I think I would do that. But anything outside of that, I don't have a knack or skill or hobby of some sort that
You can
generates
monetize
money.
it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, that's a good way to put it. I mean, it's exactly that, right? Like you take all you are really is a collection of experience. And so you have to be able to build on that experience in one way or another. And if you don't have any physical or digital hobbies or anything like that, then you have to take from what you do, from what you know.
Yeah.
And that makes total sense. That makes total sense. You mentioned consulting, and that was something that I always dabbled with a different coworker of mine. And I'm like, man, we know so much about our field. There was a different field, different industry than what we're in now, Brian. But like, I was like, man, we know so much about our field. It really wouldn't be that hard for us to just start a consulting business. And we always kicked the idea around. We never actually took any solid steps. And I think that, at one point or another, there's still value in that. There's still a way to kind of come into a market, um, build on the experiences, find the gaps. And the most important thing though is to really like identify where is the gap and how can I utilize my experience. So it almost feels like work, right? And you almost have to be very, very, you have to toe the line very, very well to make sure that there's no conflict of interest, to make sure that you're not, you know, stepping on anybody's toes or stealing business or that type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time though, why not? Why not use the experience that you've accumulated, you don't use on a regular basis in your 9 to 5? Why not use that for something that can be a long term investment in one way or another? But my question to you then, Brian, would be like, are you interested in something that you can do on the side for some extra cash, that type of entrepreneurship and that type of like side hustle, or is it I can really build a corporation, I can really build up a large business, and do you have that type of vision for building up a large organization?
Man, extra cash, bro. I think that the like, dude, I think the large corporation thing is the thing that I'd be running from.
Right. Mm-hmm.
To do entrepreneurship, so to get back into that space would be almost a mind and energy suck again. Now, there's a long runway between extra cash and large corporation because it could be really good
True.
money. I just I just think that if I do something outside of work, it would be to either have more leverage financially or feel some sense of relief or freedom
Mm-hmm.
that in case things don't work out at an
Mm-hmm.
organization that I have something to fall back on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's totally valid, dude. Totally valid. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? If that having a backup plan is one of those KPIs, right? Is one of those things that is important, or not necessarily. It's not necessarily a backup plan, but I'd say it's a welcome add-on, right? Like if you could have something that kind of brings in some extra cash and gives you an extra this or that throughout the month, throughout the year, why not?
Yeah, dude. I started to look at corporate America as like a gated community, and I always felt like, okay, this is your security, right? You move to the nice neighborhood, it's gated, but then you see like, hey, man, he's got the best ADT system at his house, and they robbed him. Oh, then they robbed Jill, and now they robbed Jason. It's like, bro, either you're gonna get a gun or
Yeah.
or you're gonna get robbed because it doesn't matter all how high of a performer you are, anything. Like now we're at the
Right.
place where shareholder wealth is super important. So if they have to let people go, it's not just low performers or people who aren't necessarily needed. They'll let go of people in mass now. So you can't necessarily say, oh, it's because he wasn't great at his job. Like, well, what about the other 5,000 people they just dropped? You
That's
know what I
true.
mean?
Yeah,
So
that's true. That's
so
true.
for me, it's just kind of you know being able to continue the life I have without not necessarily disruption, but without being interrupted in a way that's just so messed up that you can't recover fully, because I've been laid off before. Um, and I think it took me 6 months to find another job, and I did some consulting at that time, so I dabbled in a little bit, but it's just I didn't want it to be the full time thing. So as soon
Hmm.
as I got a job, I dropped dropped all those things because it was just the thing to do in the between time.
Right, right. I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah,
There's
man.
value in that too. You know what I mean? But it
Yeah,
really,
dude.
it's what matters to you in the moment. I think. You know what I mean? If
Yeah,
that matters to you in the moment, then that's great. But as soon as you saw that something else was more valuable, then you gave that up and went to something else.
yeah, dude. And I
That's the
think
beauty of the freedom of it.
the one thing I did like when I was consulting was that is what true flexibility looks like. You know, even though you are working for somebody still, you're building out your own schedule. You're not on Zoom call, back by another Zoom call, by another Zoom call, because you're an organization of one technically.
Hmm.
So no one's sharing your calendar, and you don't have to go to the team call that you're not presenting on. You don't have to do all those things. And so yeah, it was cool to be in Palm Springs and just walk in the park and then in 20 minutes hop on a call and only have to deal with my part of
Right.
the will and present my part, get my part done. Um, and that's it without having to add additional layers of people and things like that. So yeah, I think consulting from an from an entrepreneurship standpoint is interesting.
We'll have to talk about that. We'll have to talk about that at a different time. We'll have
Yeah,
to talk
yeah,
about
yeah,
the
man.
what it would take to get into consulting and the values that you would have to bring to the table to be able to start a consulting business because that's something that I've always considered and wanted to take a deeper dive in.
Dude, for sure, man. Yeah, if y'all are looking for consultants, email us at no,
No,
join
you're
our
playing now. You're
join our
playing
list.
now. That's hilarious. That's so funny.
Oh man, join our Discord slash what's all the things they have? Our Patreon,
Yeah, Discord, Patreon. What else we got?
uh,
Private groups, all this stuff.
private groups.
Yeah. Click the link in the bio.
Yeah,
Yeah, comment consultant in my yeah, we'll DM you a
we'll
link or
DM
whatever.
you.
Yeah, no, crazy. Way too much. Way too much.
Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, yeah, man. Well, dude, we did it. We tackled the idea of what it looks like to be successful in corporate
Yeah,
America.
redefining success.
Yeah, redefining success. I think that it is that, like we said, that freedom, uh, not being completely controlled. I think that's what's giving people peace right now. Is just the idea that they're not fully out of control in their day.
Hmm. Yep. Understanding what's important to you, understanding what drives you, and understanding what the trade offs would be for the ideal scenario versus what might mean stability versus what might mean um, experience building or something like that. So and also too, I'd add in one last thing in there is getting the most out of every situation that you go through. So
Ooh,
if you're going through a rough patch, right, just try to get the most out of that situation. If you're stuck in the corporate world and you're trying to get out, make the most out of that situation. Or if you went the other way and you became a consultant and you became an entrepreneur, but it wasn't all it seemed like at when you first started, then you get the most out of that situation and you apply it to other aspects of your life. So there's value in every which way that you decide to go, but it's really just what drives you and keeping it individual to what drives you. Don't let society kind of influence you in that way.
yeah, that's a really good point because I just talked to somebody who hates their job and they can't leave. They got at least they say about 9 or 10 months before they really start looking because they
Mm-hmm.
have a project to finish.
Mm-hmm.
So I told them because they threw it out there a while back. I said, dude, well, you mentioned that they'll pay for your Six Sigma certification and trainings and all this, and then some other thing that is really important in his job structure for like tech engineer, archetype, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I said, dude, just get all the certifications before you leave.
Yeah.
Like if they're gonna pay for it, then leave with something. You know what I mean? Make the best of the situation.
100%. That's so important. And even like, even if you're thinking about it, right? Like even if you say, you know, my 10-year plan doesn't necessarily, I don't see myself here. What can I take advantage of while I'm here? Right? Not just take advantage for elsewhere, but also like it would help me out here, sure. But that's something that I'll be able to like. Who was it that said it? The one thing that I don't know who said it, but like the one thing that nobody can take from you is your knowledge. So
Yeah.
just accumulate as much knowledge as you can, and it'll be far more worthwhile than just stressing through the day in day out and potentially hating your job, hating your company, which is
Yep.
not the case right now. I've had those periods, but I'm living a happy life.
Yeah, yeah. We're not talking about us right now. This we
No,
would
no, 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 no. Definitely not. Definitely not.
awesome. Well, dude, we got to do it again, man. This was great.
Yeah.
Can't wait to cover another topic. If you guys are enjoying what we are talking about, then yes, do all the things Brian just mentioned, like, subscribe, add a comment.
That's right.
As we made that joke, I thought about how true that is.
So true. So true. Yep. We want to hear from you. Uh, like and subscribe and comment as much as you can. We try to be as interactive as we can be. But in the meantime, we'll be back soon.
Be back. Peace.
See you.